And of course, isn't that the big question, Kenny, as to what happens now? Because they've all been elected. Top 7 is there. We're waiting to hear who's going to be in the NEC. But the big question is, can they bring those tangible changes that Fasiya Hassan is talking about? That's Kenny Mapanga. They're in conversation with Fasiya Hassan. And in studio with me is Dr. Ronesh Doraj, our editor at News Research, and Stembiso Tole, our specialist, of course, social media specialist. And I always ask Stembiso, how does he manage to keep tabs on all the social media platforms? Thank you so much to you both for your time. Let's start, Dr. Ronesh, with the result. And a lot of people, say they didn't see some of the results coming. They took them by surprise. But when you also think about what the provinces were saying, for some, the writing was on the wall.
I think the writing was on the wall, certainly, Bongiwe, but I think the big story for me from this conference is KZN again came into this national conference with the biggest delegation, close to 20%, close to 900 delegates, but again, for the second time running, 2017, no one in the top 6, 2022, 5 years later, not a single person in the top 7. And obviously, the other biggest loser was Limpopo as well. Lots of, statements were made yesterday from the Northwest, from Gauteng as well, from Limpopo as well, but obviously we took those statements in the media with a pinch of salt. Then the other big loser obviously is Mpumalanga as well, but when we reflect on the numbers that came into national conference, the 3 big provinces, firstly was KZN, second was the Eastern Cape, thirdly, it was Limpopo. But obviously, I think Gauteng was the biggest, benefactor from the results that actually transpired here at National Conference. But very historic moment for the ANC as well, 110-year-old party, Africa's oldest liberation movement, come political party. For the first time in history, they have a female treasurer general. And what happened yesterday, we saw with Zwandile Masina and Pulemabe acting a bit too late. Those 281 votes could have helped Pulemabe over the line and possibly captured that TG post. Yeah.
And we'll talk about KZN in just a moment, because one gets a sense that they may have misunderstood, their majoritarianism, if one may put it that way. Stembiso, what has been the sentiment on social media when looking at this top 7?
No, definitely, Bongiwe, it's been a long day, and particularly looking into the number of people that have been elected, the slates that are there. You'll recall that there were predictions that Zweli Mkhize will take over this in between. But when you're looking into the people, the messages of support, congratulating the president, one of those is former public protector, Thuli Madonsela, as we put that tweet on the screen, basically congratulating the president of the ANC, that's Cyril Ramaphosa, really reflecting on that, saying he has been re-elected, and they really congratulate him in between. And of course, not only that, but many people coming out there really congratulating the president.
And Stembiso, what else are they doing? Are they then hoping that he then takes all the aspirations that South Africans would have into action? Because ultimately this is the governing party.
Definitely, without a doubt, Bongiwe, like we've been constantly saying, that the sentiment also, they say now we are where we are, what's the way forward and what really needs to be done. And therefore, one of the key things that also, even politically, we're talking about KZN, lessons there to simply saying always find ways to really find ways to work together and turning a way forward. Of course, there are a lot of lessons for them in terms of none of anyone from KZN is in that leadership, and at the same time, then how do they go back to their branches to simply saying this is what took place, but let's put our differences aside. We might have not won this battle, but this time around, then let's find a way forward to work together and focus on service delivery, making sure that our people on the ground really get what they need.
When we look at the numbers, Dr. Ronesh, let's then look at the position of Secretary General. KZN did not, of course, at some point they came in and said we're supporting Dumseni and all of that, but in the beginning, when the BBC was pronouncing what the branches are saying, he wasn't there. And a lot of people looking at the numbers, they all just breached the 1,000 mark, all of them. How well would he have done, in your view, with that possibility of a support there?
I think Dumseni Ntuli was a very strong provincial secretary in KZN. I really thought he would actually, win this race for the SG's post, because he's one very thorough, very composed kind of a person. He knows the organization very well. He knows how the ANC works. He can connect with the ANC's membership. So I was really surprised that he did not get the support of KZN when he came into this race. Had he received the support initially from his very own province, I think he would have stood a better chance. But speaking of the SG post, obviously we know Fikile Mbalula is very vocal on Twitter, on social media. He tried for this post, by the way, in 2012, and amazingly, Gwede Mantashe at that time, from all the top 6 positions, Gwede Mantashe even got more votes than the actual president, President Zuma. Gwede Mantashe, if my memory serves me correct, I think the percentage was 77%, and obviously Mbalula finished off with a paltry 991 votes. That's amounts to around 23%. This time around, I think it's all in the timing.
A different result then when you look at Gwede and Stan Mathabatha, just by a narrow margin there.
44 votes, yeah. So I think what helped Gwede Mantashe this time, I think people have noticed how he has managed himself in the party. Remember, he was a very strong Secretary General during the very tumultuous years in the ANC. He supported, he protected ANC President Jacob Zuma. Then obviously the last time we were here in 2017, he became ANC chairperson, and now that term has just been renewed for another 5 years. And I think if you saw what happened on Monday, on Friday when the conference opened, Gwede Mantashe was one of the people who stood up and said, just quieten down, respect the president. So I think people and the delegates from the other 8 provinces saw a very strong leader in Gwede Mantashe, and obviously the campaigning in between, the little bit of horse trading and all of that did indeed help him, and that's the reason there was that narrow margin between him and Stan Mathabatha, just 44 votes separating the two.
And one also wonders what maybe some of the delegates even made of the videos of Stan Mathabatha switching from his own delegates at the 11th hour. So what else are some of the leaders saying on social media when they're looking at the top 7?
Yes, but you'll remember that not only us South Africans have been watching this conference, you'll remember that ANC played a critical role in the, Africa and also African countries, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Angola, during the struggle. Those are some of the countries that contributed in making sure that the ANCs, those who are sent in exile. One of the tweets was sent by Nelson Chamisa. He sent a tweet immediately as you put that tweet on screen, basically congratulating the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, congratulating him. They're simply saying congratulations to the president of the ANC, also congratulating Paul Mashatile, also congratulating Fikile Mbalula, and that shows that this conference was not only for us in South Africa, but also those outside. And then you remember also Hopewell, the Zimbabwean journalist, as we put that tweet on the screen, really congratulating the president, simply saying, we have learned from what we have learned from the election of the president Cyril Ramaphosa is that it's ideology, right? Saying those of course were opposed to that, then you would have thought that the president would not come back, but he was up against a disorganized group of people. I think for me that really speaks to some of the points that my colleague made.
And interestingly enough, reminding us that Twitter is not the entire country.
Yes, that's true, and it's very important to note that. And when we look at social media, and I still say that there's a sentiment that the views that are on Twitter are the ones that are dominant. We have seen this constantly, that yes, the politicians, they might have certain views about with the direction that they think in terms of the outcomes, but social media is a different beast because it's a small portion of people that are there, and that does really determine the outcome. And we must say, the people who are voting here are not only it's different from those people who are voicing their views on Twitter. These are people who have a certain interest when it comes to that, not forgetting that also one of those who actually sent their congratulations is ZANU PF, in between. So those are some of the sentiments on social media, and we look forward to what they will be saying as we wait for those additional members within the NAC. And
you did a lot of work on social media, and of course your PhD on it there. But when you look at how some of these candidates were running their campaigns on social media, really trying to capture the sentiment of the delegates, because some of the delegates are quite active themselves on social media, and when you look at even different provinces, sometimes you even get a sense that things are not so kosher there.
Bongiwe, sadly, I did not find even the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa Ramaphosa. Last time round, he was much more vocal, much more present over Twitter. He had a Twitter handle. He had a close group of people around him pushing that campaign. Lindiwe Sisulu as well. This time around, I think it was more subdued. Maybe the campaigning was off Twitter, off social media spaces. Fine, we had, those infographics, one or two of those candidates. And I think this time around, maybe it was more a non-technological kind of campaign, directly, via WhatsApp groups, via SMSs, that kind of thing. COVID has subsided, so those one-on-one meetings, possibly group meetings, could have been held. So I think social media this time was much focused in 2017, but not this time around.
Gentlemen, I hope the next time we speak, we talk about social media and how not being on it may sometimes prejudice you or sometimes may just help you. So how do you then strike the balance there? As we've seen with some of the candidates, they're not even there on social media, but let's leave it there with you. Thank you so much to you both for coming in. That's Dr. Ranesh Doraj, our editor at News Research, and our social media specialist is Thembiso Sithole. Iman, a lot is being said about what's expected to happen here at Nasrec. When you think about those crucial numbers, 80 of the 200 are expected to make it onto the list of NEC members. Who is it going to be? Because that is also going to be telling as far as the leadership of the ANC is concerned, and what kind of NEC is President Cyril Ramaphosa likely to then have for the next few years.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Bongiwe, and in fact, on the numbers issue, in the way that they have innovated this year with a top 7, one wonders whether an innovation on creating an NEC light might be something they would consider, given that it is the highest decision-making body between conferences, and whether they need a leaner machine to sprint more agilely into the party's future. So hopefully we'll circumnavigate these themes as we continue our analysis tonight. Thank you to Bongiwe and our team at Nasrec. We'll be back with them at the top of the hour.